Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Shorts Program Read live Q&A, our third one of the day, and it's just such a thrill to speak with these filmmakers whose works I viewed as part of the imagineNATIVE 2020 programming jury and also today. So joining me this afternoon are the directors, Victoria Anderson-Gardner, Glenn Gear, Deborah Brown, Marja Nango and Ingir Nango, and Christy Griffin. Is Christy here? No. So welcome, everybody. Congratulations on your film screening at imagineNATIVE today. I'm gonna start with maybe a round of introductions. So we'll start by telling us a little bit about yourself, your name, your film, maybe your nation, your Indigenous nation that you come from, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna go by like my screen clockwise. So we'll start with Ingir.
Okay, my name is Ingir, and me and my sister Marja, who's also attending, we made the Tongues short film together, and we wrote it together. We made the whole concept. So yeah, and
we're Sami.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot that question. Yes, we are Samis from Scandinavia. Samis are in Finland, Sweden, Norway, and a part of Russia too. So, yeah.
Marja, would you like to go next?
Yeah, my name is Marja, and we are sisters who made the tongues. We are from a reindeer herding family in Norway. And fun fact that actually me and Ingir were at imagineNATIVE 5 years ago, where we were at a script workshop where we started actually the journey of the tongue. So it started at imagineNATIVE 5 years ago. So that's very, very cool, actually.
It really is. There seems to be a lot of synergy today in these Q&As because oftentimes like projects have started at imagineNATIVE and now are screening at imagineNATIVE. So that's really good to know. That makes me happy. Glenn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Unasakut Glengear Uvunga. Good afternoon. My name is Glenn Gear. I'm of Inuit and settler ancestry from Njoukcamat, that's northern Labrador. I worked on a short little animation called Katinngak Together, and it's basically an archival recording of throat singing that I've kind of reworked and animated to these throat singing animals. So there's a lot of beadwork that's featured in the background. It's very brightly colored. And it's just a short little joyous piece. So that's all I'll say because it's just over a minute long.
Thanks for that, Glenn. Victoria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, bonjour, everyone. My name is Victoria Anderson-Gardner. I come from the Ojibwe lands of Eagle Lake First Nation, which is up in like northwestern Ontario. And so my film that's playing is called Becoming Nakuset, which documents a survivor of the 60s scoop who was taken from her home in Thompson, Manitoba through Jewish Family Services. And she was raised in Montreal. So it just profiles what she went through in her life, but then also who she has become now. And she's now the executive director for the Native Women's Shelter of Montreal. And it's a short documentary, so it's about 10 minutes long, but I would really recommend seeing it just so you can see how strong of a person Nakuset is.
Thanks for that, Victoria. I am also from Northwestern Ontario, so I'm a member at Njoukcamat First Nation. That's where my mom and my grandfather are from. And then my dad's family is from Lake of the Woods, Big Grassy First Nation. So it's nice to see somebody from the homelands. Deborah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Deborah Brown and I'm talking to you from Gadigal land, also known as Sydney, Australia. My background is of Torres Strait Islander heritage. So they're a group of islands at the very, very tip of Australia, if you look at the tip of the map. Meriam Mir is my language group and also Badu Island. And I directed the short film Bala, which was really a master's project at the end of last year. So I'm super honored that I've made it to imagineNATIVE because I have a lot of respect for this film festival. I think it's a great film festival, and always just hear wonderful things about who comes together here. So yeah, it's a little poetic short that's a little bit layered and probably a bit deep and dark, so hopefully it translates.
It's a beautiful film, Deborah. It's a beautiful film. And I was thinking this morning, you know, rethinking this shorts program and the ways in which the conversations and dialogues between the films, and in many ways these films are about connections and reconnections, whether that's about a cultural practice or grieving or love for our families. Like, these things are all present. So can each of you maybe talk about your journey in making the film, whether that's a personal journey, and how you see sort of connections and reconnections as a theme within these works? Whoever would like to jump in, just go ahead.
I can start. So my film is really, I feel like it's profiling a lot of intergenerational trauma, just due to like the 60s scoop, and my own personal connection with it, just because it's not necessarily has to do with my own family, but my family's been through similar traumas, is that my own mom was a part of the 60s scoop. And so when I was interviewing Nakuset, it almost felt like I was interviewing my own mom in a way, which was really personal for me, just because it really helped me to understand my own parents and the own struggles that they went through during their time. And I feel like anyone who watches the film will really see like this really intimate story of someone's traumas, but also just how they haven't let it necessarily define who they were going to become. And it was something that was really inspiring for me to actually be a part of, which I just hope everyone watches it.
Yeah, I can jump in then next. Our film, The Tongues, is also about trauma. We're following a reindeer herder, a female reindeer herder who gets raped in a snowstorm, and we follow the aftermath, her psychological aftermath. So we kind of experience her trauma throughout the film. And I think that when we wrote it, Ingir, that it was kind of a personal story for both of us, that we kind of wanted to kind of rewrite our own traumas in a fictional way. So it was an extremely healing process to work on this film for both me and Ingir, writing it together and making it, and also acting in it. Ingir is the lead actress and I'm the supporting actress. So Ingir is acting the woman who's we're following in the film, that is wants to fight for her soul survival first and foremost. So I think it's a personal story for me and Ingir. You want to add anything, Ingir?
The funny part is that now we have discussed this, Marja, we could never make this film now because we have healed so much, so we're not
the film, yeah.
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 I'll come in so Glenn can carry it home with something brighter. Because again, my Bala really deals with grief, and I was looking at. I really wanted to explore, because it was my final project to do my master's. I really wanted to explore masculinity and Black male masculinity, particularly island men, and there's so many layers, because Australian media sometimes looks at Black men in Australia as not decent fathers, and I wanted to show that there is a softer side to Black men here in Australia, and that there is something quite poetic and the anxieties and the grief that they deal with, they can deal with quietly. And I also wanted to lift to another side.
Sorry about
you
that.
got call? No, that's all right. How suicide is often a theme here, and I think I wanted to give an alternative to looking towards hope, rather than that the only answer is suicide. But the connection that I found was actually more behind the scenes, because I was reconnecting with language. Each of the men in my film are related to me. They're either my cousins or my nephews. And one of my nephews speaks our traditional language fluently. So I think that was my connection, not on screen, but off screen, which was great to explore.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That adds something, I think, to the film for me after viewing it a number of times now. Thank you. Glenn?
I guess for my piece, because it's not dealing with things like intergenerational trauma or like the 60 scoop or anything. It's more of a connection to the land and to the indigenous animals of the land. It's more a playful, joyous piece. And also, I guess within the piece, a lot of beadwork is kind of featured in this kaleidoscopic background. And for myself, as a man, it's kind of important to engage with things like beadwork or non-traditional kind of processes or crafts. And that's a big theme that sort of runs through all my work. I do a lot of sewing and textural sort of based work based in seal skin and that sort of thing. So yeah, the piece is what it is. It's really short. It's often important for me to take back archival things, either photographs or recordings that often come from a colonial point of view, and to break them open, rework them, and insert some of who I am as like an urban Indigenous person within that, and to make something that's celebratory, that maybe offers a place of hope. I always think, like in my work, I try as an Inuk, as a queer person, to insert myself and to create a space, not only for myself, but for other people, and to hold that up to a higher place, maybe.
Yeah, I know. I did read that you had, thanks for sharing that. I did read that you had done all of the animation. Were you also doing the audio and the editing as well?
No, the audio is the archival piece. So that's an old piece that I found through the CBC archives. And I think it was probably recorded in the early 50s. And it's of a traditional throat song, Inuit throat singing. And often the themes within those songs are of animals, or their animal sounds or animal movements. And I wanted to reflect that back to having the animals themselves sort of throat singing. And often you'll see predator and prey sort of singing together. And I sort of like that dichotomy a little bit. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, I like that too. They're coming together in like a peaceful, communal action. Yeah. Thank you. Deborah, we have a question from somebody who's watching for you. And the question is, how did the idea to make such a layered film happen?
Well, I had just completed a long career as a dancer. So I had danced, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with an Indigenous dance company called Bangarra here in Australia. And so that was 15 years. And so I was kind of, I was really grappling with how to get more into text-based work and language, because I'd sort of been voiceless for quite some time, because it was all just purely physical. And I think I was just looking at the climate in Australia, and yeah, I think it's layered because my brain is so layered with everything that I want to speak up about and speak against, to all the misconceptions. So I think I just looked at the men in my life who I was close to and not represented, really not represented, because being Torres Strait Islander, we're such a small percentage in Australia. Indigenous people in Australia are 2 to 3%. But of course, that's just one big generalization. We're many countries and many nations in Australia. So I think being of Torres Strait Island descent, not many people are familiar with our culture. Everybody's introduced in Australia as Aboriginal and Islander, but I don't think majority of Australia understand who Islander is. So I wanted to bring in language, and I wanted to bring in the men's physique and their sculpture as a way to not fear a Black man, to make a Black man show that he can be vulnerable. So I think it was more motivated by just misconceptions that I see in media and other people that I meet through my touring. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that comes across in the film. Like, I think there's in terms of the figures in the film, the men in the film, like there's a strength and a delicacy to them and how they're portrayed, or like a vulnerability that I thought was really moving. So thank you for that. Victoria, you mentioned sort of, in this film, you're dealing with Nakuset's story, or a story that is deeply personal and painful. How, as a filmmaker, did you approach the ethical concerns around presenting a story, and specifically in terms of what you give the audience and what you hold back?
So we were very careful about just the whole process of it all. Like, that was something that I was really adamant about throughout the whole process, especially with the rest of the crew involved. So what I did was I actually did like more of, I would say, like pre-interviews on like just like phone calls with Nakuset, just because since I'm based out of Thunder Bay right now, and she's in Montreal, it's harder to build that sort of connection. So we definitely had like many phone calls. And then on the day that we actually did like the most intimate like interview aspect, we set up the actual camera setup so that she couldn't actually see the rest of the crew. And we used, I forget what the eyepiece is called, but it's like this reflection system where when she looks into the lens of the camera, she just sees my face only. So we made it really personal so that she felt more comfortable sharing such deeply personal aspects of herself with the world. And then we also made sure that she had a support person on set with her, just because it is such a tricky topic, and it's really nice to at least have someone there that you're actually comfortable with. I know I can make her as comfortable as I could, but it's not going to be as much as someone who's like actually in her life. So we made sure she had that. And then after the fact, we tried to make sure that that what was being told was what she wanted to be told. And so it's just like having open dialogue with her throughout the whole process as much as we can. And I personally believe that we've done her story some good justice. And I really hope that as many people will be able to see this as possible, just because it's a really, really touching film, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like as we're watching it, it never feels exploitive. Like, it feels very empowering for Nakuset, to tell the story. Like, it feels empowering as an audience to see somebody empowered. So yeah, that definitely came across. Thank you. Marja and Ingir, we have another question from people who are watching this Zoom. So the question is, could you speak to the weight, presence of the reindeer and nature in your film?
yeah, it was very like a natural part of the story when we wanted to take like the reindeer herding society. It was like the basis of the film that we wanted to portray it in a reindeer herding society. So the nature and the reindeers are a very like natural part of that world. So it was kind of very natural to have it in there. But actually we wrote the reindeers in at the very last draft because we wanted to make the story first about the woman, and then we figured out that the reindeers had to be much more part of the story because the woman was so connected with the reindeers, and we wanted to make that connection very strong, that female main character is so connected to the lands and the reindeers, and we want to show it explicitly also, not only in her soul. Yeah. And me and Ingir, we are from a reindeer herding family, so it's a very natural part of our life too. So it was also very natural to shoot it also. It was we shot half of the film at our home place actually. So it's very familiar, the nature and mountains. You want to add anything, Ingrid?
No, I think you said it all. Like, yeah.
I think we only have time for maybe 2 more questions, and there's one from folks watching this for Glenn. So the question is, you bring together a lot of elements, sound, beating, drawing in your work, so it's kind of like a collage. They're curious about your creative process as you bring together these different elements. Could you please share something about your creative process?
Yeah, sure. I think with any project that I work on, process is kind of key. It shifts and changes. I think for Katinngak Together, first I came across the original recording, which was through CBC archives. And that inspired me to kind of rethink the animation. The animation itself is just simple cardboard or paper cutout. So I just drew the characters, filmed them against a green screen, and took pictures of beadwork. I do a lot of like pop sockets and different kinds of medallions in terms of my own beadwork. I took photographs of that beadwork and then digitally manipulated them into these kinds of kaleidoscopic backgrounds. So it's a combination of traditional stop motion animation with paper and cardboard, and a little bit of digital manipulation. I like to go between the digital and the analog quite a bit. And also a lot of what I do is mentoring. So I mentor a lot of Indigenous youth and some elders as well. So I try to make that process very transparent and easy to understand for people. So I often invite people into my studio to watch me animate, or just so I can teach them and kind of give back to different communities to demystify that whole process. But I try to keep it very low budget, do it yourself, you know, kind of run and gun, but still make it look pretty.
We love that. We love a DIY that still looks pretty. We like that. This went entirely too fast, but maybe we'll just ask one final question. I'm sure that people want to know what you're working on now. So if you all could share, you know, let us know a project that you're working on or what you're doing, what you're up to, that would be great.
Yeah, so like me and Marja, we are working on our first feature. So we are writing the script.
It's also set in the reindeer herding society.
Yeah.
So it will be more about the romance part. It will not be this raw and brutal as the tongues is. It's more about the romance and feelings.
We'll look forward to that. Maybe it'll come to imagineNATIVE in a few years.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, yeah.
I'm doing a little bit in theatre at the moment, so I'm helping out with a creative development of another First Nations story, which also I think discusses a lot on grief and certainly intergenerational trauma. So that's what we've been working on at the moment here. Yeah.
I'm currently working on a big installation piece for the new Inuit Arts Center that's opening up, I think, in January or February. That's with the Winnipeg Art Gallery. And so, yeah, I'm working on a mural, sound, projected video. It's going to be a bit insane, but I'm really excited to be working on that.
Right now, I'm actually also working on my first feature-length drama called Tanaya. It actually just recently won the TIFF's Big Pitch Audience Choice Award, which was really, really great. So we have a little bit of funding for development right now, and we're currently just in the development process, but hopefully move into production next year, depending on COVID. But I would definitely keep an eye out for that on my socials, which is @GoForVictoria on all social media.
Thank you for that, and congratulations. That's amazing news. I'm so happy to hear that. Well, thank you all for joining this. It went too fast, but I think we answered some questions, and I'm hoping the audience felt like, you know, it was a fruitful discussion. And yeah, so these things, the festival schedule is released every day. New films are released every day. Check back on the festival website. We have all kinds of cool things planned. So thank you all so much for joining. Take care.
Njoukcamat.
Igwich.
Oh.